This platform was built from the ground up to manage client info requests. That's all it does really, really well. Give the client a clean place to see everything you need from them, and then follow up relentlessly until all those items are provided. And running an accounting firm efficiently basically boils down to how effectively we can gather information at scale. And if you're just doing this over email or with a basic request tool, your team can easily waste over 25% of their time just following up with people and trying to figure out what they have and what they don't have. So check out this tool. It's called Content Snare, the sponsor of this week's demo day. They are basically the gold standard for how premium the client request experience can be. Over the past couple of years, many practice management systems have built requests into their portals. They're very basic, like bolt-ons. Today, you are going to see just how good requests can be. Using Content Snare, I'm gonna run you through 3 examples for bookkeeping, tax, and advising firms. Up first, a month-end close example. So we'll create a request, but a request is basically 4 steps. 1, you build it. What are the items that you need? 2, you publish it. You push it to the client. 3, you review it. Did they give us adequate answers? And then 4, you complete it. You archive that request. So let's create a new request. Got a whole bunch of templates here. For example, here's a client onboarding template we could use. But just to show you how it works, I'm gonna build one from scratch. Now my goal here is to set up a request for the 5 or 6 things I gotta ask Steve for each month to close the books, and then get the system to auto follow up until Steve provides those items. So starting from scratch here, I'm gonna name it Steve's monthly request, and it's asking whether we want the first page of the request to be instructions for how these requests work, like the platform. They give you a default one. I can customize it if I want, embed a little how-to video. Since this is Steve, and he'll find a way to screw it up, I'm gonna include this instruction page. Save and continue. Now we've got a hierarchy on the left with 2 levels to it, pages and sections. In the case of this request, I'm gonna have 2 pages, bank statements and inventory figures. On the first page, I need 2 statements from Steve. We'll call this section upload docs. I'll change the question type. Got a whole bunch of question types here, standard stuff like you see in form builders, but also advanced stuff like if you need a driver's license, a task list, a signature, even full-blown spreadsheet tables. I'm just gonna pick file upload. We're gonna call this one Bank of America credit card statement. We could restrict the file type to PDF, so Steve doesn't give me smartphone images. I'm just gonna make it required. Now I'll duplicate this field or this question for the other statement, the Oak Tree Bank statement. Now I'll build out this page for inventory figures. All right, I've added 3 questions. Give me the month-end inventory balance. Tell me what you expect inventory to do this month, and a few reminders of tasks Steve needs to do based on a recent conversation. Now these are just some random details I have to ask for every single month in order to close the books, but I often forget to, and then I have to remind Steve and bug him, and it gets uncomfortable. This request puts that info gathering on autopilot. So to wrap this up, I'll go to preview. He's gonna get this nice orderly request, all the pages and questions here. To finalize, it's going to Steve. I don't want him commenting. And let's use a pin since he's uploading bank statements that could have account numbers on them. The request is due a few days from now, and here's where we set the reminder schedule. Let's drill into the default here. These are all the different types of notifications Steve could get. First is to let him know that there's a new request, but since it's his first time in the platform, it calls that out. When the request is completed, he'll get a confirmation, but reminders are gonna start 5 days after the request is published, with the asterisk that they'll only go out if it hasn't been started yet, like if he hasn't provided any answers. Now here's what this one looks like. Then there's a whole sequence of different messages depending on the number of days if it hasn't still been started. Now, here under reminders, we can create all sorts of custom reminder schedules. I'll show you the default. We've got timed communications and conditional communications if certain criteria apply. I could create, for example, the Steve Special Reminder template, which uses particularly aggressive communications. In fact, we could totally use AI to do like a talk like a pirate version of this, or like a thick Boston accent that curses a lot. Anyways, back to that request, we'll publish and send, and it'll hound Steve until he completes it. Now, here is what it looks like over on Steve's side. We'll set our pin since it's the first login. I'll chuck a bank statement in here. You'll notice each item is submitted individually for review. This is great because for longer tasks, client can knock it out a chunk at a time. They don't have to do it all at once. In fact, let me show you, it will auto-save. Look at this, I'll type a number, and then up here on the left, it'll save. So if I get disconnected or something, we're good. Now I can, on my side, the advisor, actually reject any of these submissions individually. For example, if they accidentally gave me the wrong year of a form, I could say, sorry, bud, add some comments and it'll push it back to them. But it is a super clean experience for the user. And while this was a very simple request, in production, I'm probably gonna have a whole bunch of requests in motion, right? So let me show you this. Here is a shot from another dashboard with a card or a list view. You'll see once those requests are out in the wild, you've got a single place where you can see the progress that people are making. Number of questions completed, number of questions to do, and the number that have been approved by my team. And the place to start with this tool is something simple. You can literally start with a single engagement. Start small, just like we did here. But when you see this list view, it kind of makes you think of your biggest, gnarliest info requests, and you're like, oh man, when I send out that set of 100 requests, wouldn't it be nice to see all the progress being made in one place? How far along my clients are, which ones are done? And frankly, auditors have way better tools than we do for this stuff. The PBC lists, tech to manage all that stuff. But for whatever reason, tax firms and bookkeeping firms have never really had mature requesting tools. And this is a great visualization of the value of that. So that was a simple case. Now let's consider the most extreme request I can imagine, sending a request to every single one of my tax clients for the info to prep their return. Gross. I'm gonna show an example of gathering info for a US personal tax prep. For your firm, whether you do US tax or not, this will give you an idea of what like big, audacious, complicated requests look like. So I've got a request in progress here, and this is actually a template for 1040 tax prep that's available to anyone. All the pages down the left side with various sections. If I come to preview, I can see we're first asking for the client's basic info, but I've already got that. Like, do I really need to ask for that? So if I wanted, I could remove this personal info section, or check this out, I can unlock pre-filling. And I'm gonna put everything I know already in here. Steve Smith. That's his last name. I can save it as a draft for the client or just submit to review. In this case, I know Steve hasn't changed his name, so I'll submit. But his address, I'm pretty sure I know that it hasn't changed, but I'll put it in here and I'll save it as a draft. That way, all that he'll need to do is either submit it if it hasn't changed, but if it did, he could pop in and change it and then submit. Now I'll jump down here to tax filing status. If I set this to married filing jointly, you'll see a spouse section just conditionally opened up on the left here. Are you beginning to see how good this can be? The notion of staging all this stuff that I already know so it's as easy as possible for the client with pre-fills using conditional logic to not ask dumb questions. Now, is this a lot of work? Here's what I would say. The good news here is year over year, I can actually copy last year's requests with or without the answers, making year 2 way easier. But more holistically on the subject of whether requests are worthwhile. When you consider how much work it is to figure out what's been provided, what hasn't been provided, do I need to follow up? Across potentially hundreds of projects at a time, it consumes a huge amount of time during your busiest season. When the work needs to be getting done is when you're doing this. So benefit number 1 to requests, we're trading busy season work for slow season work. We can build these requests before busy season so that army of reminder bots are working throughout our busiest time. Now, benefit number 2 is it de-skills the process of info gathering. In some firms, your senior technical people are hounding clients for docs, a massive waste of time. While in other firms, admins are doing it. Now using Content Snare, it's gonna be an admin helping clients gather their info, approve submissions, so the professional only picks up the project once everything's in. Now benefit number 3 is we now have all info coming in through the same channel, not via email and physical mail and paper, phone calls, all this different stuff. I want clients to submit this info via this request, but it's also perfectly okay if I take a meeting with a client and walk them through the questions, completing them on the fly, or an admin calls the client, completing the last few questions in the request. That may actually feel more premium to your client if a human walks them through it, or it may even be necessary for some clients who would struggle with a system like this, right? But in the end, it all gets back to the same place. So when it comes time for my professional team to begin work on it, they've got all that info in the same structured system regardless of how it came in. Okay, back to requests. In the request builder, I'll jump down to the income section. Steve's got a Schedule E and I'm gonna create a new section for it. I'm gonna add a question that is a table, basically a spreadsheet, and create a version of an organizer page here. So down the left-hand side, rents, advertising, car and truck, cleaning and maintenance. I'll rename these columns to current year and prior year amounts. I'm gonna drop the pro forma amounts down the right-hand side here, lock each of these two columns so they can't be edited, and add another question that's just like a catch-all upload if he wants to provide any related docs. Now I could also explicitly request like the 1098, the real estate tax statement there if I wanted to, but then let's jump over to the preview. All the client's gotta do is enter these amounts here one by one, then upload any related docs down here. So good, so good. Now, back in the builder, I'm gonna create a section template, save. Now I'll add another section, use the schedule E we made, and now if he has a second rental, I can rename this to Oak Street, and this other one to Main Street. I shouldn't have included the pro forma amounts in the template, but you get the idea. Man, this is so clean, right? Now templates can be created at the section level, like we just did with that Schedule E, at the page level, which is a collection of sections, or at the request level, like the whole beans, a collection of pages and sections. But because I just made that Schedule E template, I can use that with any of my clients. Now, you could templatize literally like every page of a tax organizer if you wanted to. There's probably a more intelligent, conditional, like dynamic version of that you could build. But you see now why this is like the gold standard of an intelligent info collection process, something you would be proud to put in front of your clients. And because it auto saves along the way, I can pre-fill anything in here that I already know. As we set these up in the slow season, I populate it with the goodies that I have. All those go out when I want them to go out. And in a single view, I can see that data coming in across all those requests. Man, this is just such a fundamentally better approach to gathering information for my clients than emailing every single one of them, following up with, you forgot 3, 7, and 12, Steve. So good. I'm a pretty big content snare stan, if you can't tell. Okay, last example I'm gonna show you. This is a super powerful platform, but is it too much? Like, does that make it hard to set up quick little simple requests? Check this out, AI requests. I said it. Artificial intelligence. I'm gonna add a new smart request. Let's say we're building a new request for leads or something. I want to gather the business name, the industry, let's say beekeeping, engineering, or other, annual revenue, phone number, their accounting platform, and their favorite color. Purpose is to gather info from leads, and we will call it lead request. Next, meditating monkey thinks about it. How'd we do? Let's just jump over to the preview. Business name, nice. Industry, it actually got all the options that I wanted. I'd probably change the header there to not put the options in the header and just say industry. Annual revenue, it's forcing it to be a number, nice. Phone number is formatted correctly. Accounting platform, it actually added those by itself, which that's actually probably what I would use. And then favorite color. I'd probably make one change to the industry question like that header there. Otherwise, good to finalize this, and then you just select the client. I could also templatize what I just made. I'd probably give it a little more love if we were sending it to like a whole bunch of leads. Man, so many other examples of how we can use this, other things we didn't even get to. If you're an automation nerd, you can also custom assemble requests by template and send them out without lifting a finger. Look at this, combining several templates and then sending it. Fields can be marked confidential, so when someone comes back to the form after that thing has been entered, it doesn't show that sensitive item anymore. It's like redacted. They've got a whole security page, but the big one for me, admins can enforce two-factor authentication for your team. Most data breaches happen due to unauthorized access, and the most common cases of unauthorized access can be eliminated with two-factor authentication. Not enough of the tools in our space do this. It works great on mobile, even tablets. You can take one of those into a meeting with you. You can use it for stuff like training, education, giving clients access to your content. Use your firm's logo, change the colors, brand it to look like your firm. Use it for internal stuff like onboarding new team members. And it is honestly stupid cheap, too cheap. It isn't priced by user. I wouldn't be surprised if this went up. So if you look after watching this and it's now more than it was, that is frankly your fault for not being subscribed to the channel, having notifications turned on, and run right out to buy it as soon as you watch this, okay? But you can go out, actually set up a free 14-day trial. I think they even extend the trial if you tell them who sent you. Me, that would be me, Jason sent you. That is Content Snare as best as I can squeeze it into a not even slightly 5-minute demo. But pretty rad, right? Check out the link to Content Snare in the video description to learn more. This has been a demo day. I'll link the playlist where we have shown off a whole bunch of rad tech like this for accounting firms, so you will quit wasting your time following up with Steve for bank statements. Just stop it. Both of you. You too, Steve. Be better, would you?